I didn't expect her door to open that slowly. For a moment, the hallway smelled of varnish and rain, and she just stood there barefoot, one hand on the frame as though she'd forgotten she'd called me at all. Her hair was damp from the shower. A loose cardigan slid off one shoulder. I'd come up to fix her Wi-Fi, nothing else. Sorry, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I can't get it to stay connected. Her voice was steady, but something about the way she kept tucking hair behind her ear, over and over, made me think she was nervous too. I was 23, paying rent late most months, and she was the woman who owned half the building. 40-something, elegant without trying, a little tired around the eyes. We'd exchanged exactly 3 short conversations before tonight. Inside, her flat was quiet in a way mine never was. No TV, no music, just the faint drip of rain on the window ledge. The air smelled of coffee gone cold. She handed me the router as though it were a fragile animal. I've tried unplugging it, she began, then stopped, biting her lip. Sorry. I'm rambling. I crouched near the wall socket. It's fine. I talk too much when I'm nervous. That made her glance at me, sharp and surprised, then look away. We didn't speak for a few seconds. I could feel her watching my hands. I could feel myself slowing down, not because the router was complicated but because I didn't want the moment to end. When the connection blinked back to life, she let out a small breath, almost a laugh. You're good at this. Better than me. Just lucky, I said. My voice sounded different in her living room. Lower, rougher. It should hold now. She didn't move. The cardigan slipped another inch down her arm. Would you mind staying a minute? I keep losing the signal when I open the next app. Maybe you could watch? I nodded. Sure. We sat at her small kitchen table, both pretending to focus on the screen of her tablet. The rain got heavier. Every time the icon spun, she asked me again. Is it still connected? Can you check again? One more time? 10 times in less than an hour. By the 8th, she wasn't even looking at the screen anymore. By the 9th, our hands brushed when we both reached for the mug. On the 10th, she said my name instead of the question. Softly. Almost a whisper. I looked up. She held my gaze for a beat too long, then blinked and looked down at the tablet as though she'd made a mistake. That's when the knock came at the door, 3 quick raps that made her jump and pull the cardigan tight. The knock at the door faded. Whoever it was must have left. She stayed very still, hand on the table, as if listening for footsteps in the hall. When none came, she exhaled and gave a shaky laugh. Sorry. That was probably a delivery, she said, though she didn't get up to check. She drew the cardigan back up, covering the curve of her shoulder. You must think I'm hopeless. Wi-Fi and jumpy at knocks. I smiled, but my palms were damp. Everyone's a little jumpy tonight. It's the rain. I told myself to leave, to stand, to thank her for the tea I hadn't even drunk. Instead I sat, watching the reflection of streetlight flicker across her face. In the glow she looked softer, younger, but also far away. I used to do this with my ex-husband, she said suddenly. Call tech support at all hours. He never learned how anything worked. She caught herself and gave a quick shrug. We've been separated for years now. Her voice trailed off. The silence pressed in. I found myself telling her something I'd never said out loud. My dad left when I was 16. Since then it's been me and jobs, no real home for long. This place. I gestured at the building. First time I felt like I might stay put. Her eyes softened at that. You're very young to be carrying all that. I'm older than I look, I said, though it came out half a joke, half a confession. We both knew what sat between us. The age gap, the landlord-tenant line, the way she sometimes spoke like my mother might have, and the way I looked at her as if she wasn't. Every normal word felt slightly off balance, like a tightrope. She reached for the mug at the same time I did. Our fingers brushed. Not an accident. Not really. Her skin was cool. Mine felt hot all at once. We both froze, either pulling away. She cleared her throat. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not used to people helping without asking for something. I wanted to tell her I wasn't either. Instead, I said, You don't owe me anything. I like helping. Something flickered in her face at that, a mix of gratitude and something like warning. She withdrew her hand but left it close enough that I could still feel the warmth. The router lights blinked steady green. There was nothing left for me to fix, but I didn't stand. The rain had turned into a steady hush against the windows. She watched it for a long moment, then said quietly, Do you remember your first night here? The power went out. I nodded. You brought me a candle. Her smile was small, private. I don't do that for everyone. Her eyes lifted to mine and stayed there. We didn't speak. The silence wasn't empty this time. It was full, fragile, like glass. The silence between us shattered when her phone buzzed against the table. She didn't pick it up right away. The screen lit her face. I caught a glimpse of a man's name before she flipped it over, face down. I should, she began, but her voice trailed off. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear 3 times, the same nervous tick from earlier. I rose halfway from the chair. I can go. No, she said too quickly. It's just someone I used to know. A thin smile. Someone I probably should have blocked. The router light blinked steady green, but the air felt electric. I could smell the faint citrus of her shampoo, still damp in her hair. She stood, walked to the window, opened it a crack as if the rain might cool the room. You're married? I asked quietly. She shook her head. Separated. A long time now. He still thinks, well. She didn't finish. Her arms crossed tight around herself. I should have left. Instead, I moved to the window too, close enough that the scent of rain on her cardigan mingled with my own soap and sweat. We stared at the wet streetlights, not speaking. My hand rested on the sill. Hers was inches away. A key turned in the lock outside. She stiffened. That can't be, she whispered. Her eyes darted to the door. He's not supposed to have a key. I stepped back. My heart punched my ribs. Do you want me to stay? She hissed, low and urgent. Please. The door opened a crack. A man's voice called her name once. She shot a glance at me, then at the small hallway. I slipped into the kitchen, out of sight. The voice called again, softer this time, like testing the air. Then the door clicked shut. Footsteps retreated. Silence returned, thicker than before. I came out slowly. She leaned against the table, eyes closed, hand over her mouth. I'm sorry, she said. He never shows up. I didn't think, it's okay, I said, though my pulse was still hammering. I should have left. No, she whispered, opening her eyes. I didn't want you to. We stood facing each other across the small room. Water dripped from the window frame onto the floor. Her hand dropped from her mouth. My own hands curled into fists at my sides to keep from reaching out. For a heartbeat, we stepped closer at the same time. Her eyes flicked to my lips and away again. She shook her head slightly, as if scolding herself, but she didn't move back. I can't, she said. Neither can I heard myself answer. Our shoulders almost touched. The rain hissed through the open window. Her fingers brushed mine, once, then stayed there, trembling but not pulling away. The rain had slowed to a fine mist by the time I went downstairs. My hands still smelled faintly of her kitchen, lemon cleaner, coffee, rain. I walked circles in my small apartment, hearing every creak above me. She hadn't asked me to leave. I'd chosen to. And now I couldn't sit still. When my phone buzzed, it wasn't a text but a voicemail, her voice low and tight. If you're awake, could you come back? The signal's gone again. I told myself not to go. 5 minutes later I was on her landing, dripping from the mist. She opened the door before I could knock. Her cardigan was gone. She wore a loose t-shirt, hair up. She looked younger and more tired at once. I shouldn't have called, she said quickly. I can't sleep. I stepped inside. The room felt smaller than before. Neither can I. She closed the door but didn't lock it. For a moment we just listened to the rain against the glass. Her eyes were rimmed red, as if she'd been crying. I saw his car tonight, she said, voice shaking. My ex. He still parks down the street sometimes. Watches. She laughed once, brittle. I hate that it still scares me. I wanted to reach for her but stayed where I was. He's not supposed to be here. No. She wrapped her arms around herself. And neither are you. That landed like a stone between us. I felt heat rise in my neck. Do you want me to go? Her eyes snapped up. No. God. I don't know. She pressed her fingers to her forehead. You're half my age. You're my tenant. People don't have to know, I said too fast, and regretted it instantly. She stared at me, wide-eyed. Don't make this harder. I'm not, I whispered. I'm just. My throat closed. All the nights of pretending I wasn't waiting for her door to open, all the times I'd replayed her voice in my head, it came out before I could stop it. I can't stop thinking about you. She blinked. For a second I thought she'd laugh or send me out. Instead, she took a small step closer. Don't. I'm sorry, I said, but I didn't move back. I had to tell you. Her breath caught. You have no idea what you're doing. Then tell me, I said. Tell me to leave. She didn't. Her hand lifted halfway, as if to touch my face, then hovered there, trembling. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes. For a long moment neither of us breathed. The space between us narrowed to a single inch, and the sound of rain filled everything. Then someone knocked again, sharp, urgent 3 times, and she froze, her hand still suspended in the air. The knock came again, harder this time. She pulled her hand back as if burned, crossed the room and opened the door just enough to see who it was. Her whole body changed when she saw the hallway. Sam? She whispered. A young woman stood there in a raincoat, dripping, holding a small grocery bag. She couldn't have been older than me. Her hair clung to her cheeks in wet strands. Hi, Mom, she said, voice low. You weren't answering your phone. I felt the words like a physical blow. Mom. Her daughter. The woman I'd been sitting with for hours had a grown child my age. And now that child was staring at me over her mother's shoulder. Oh, the daughter said after a beat. You've got company. I took a step back, almost tripping over the edge of the rug. I'm just the tenant from downstairs, I said quickly. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Her mother's hand stayed on the doorframe. He was helping with the Wi-Fi, she added. That's all. The daughter's eyes flicked between us, the mugs on the table, the open window, my wet hair. She didn't say anything, but something in her face shifted. She stepped past her mother, set the bag on the counter. I got your tea. You said you were out? The woman shut the door slowly. Her shoulders were tight, her voice too bright. Thank you, sweetheart. That was kind. I mumbled something about checking the signal one last time and bent to the router, mostly to avoid looking at either of them. My hands shook. Behind me, the daughter said softly, He seems nice. Silence. Then the older woman said, He is. Very helpful. Her daughter's tone was neutral. Sure. I stood, ready to escape, but the older woman caught my sleeve as I passed her. It was the briefest touch, hidden by the angle of her body, but it stopped me cold. Her eyes met mine for a heartbeat. They were full of panic and something else, a plea not to disappear yet. I nodded once, barely perceptible, and left without another word. The stairwell smelled of wet concrete. My chest felt tight. Downstairs in my apartment I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on. Above me I could hear muffled voices, the daughter, her mother, and a door closing. Then nothing. A text lit my phone. "I didn't lie to you," it read. "She's not a child. She's 22. She doesn't live here. Please don't hate me." I stared at the words until the screen went dark, my reflection staring back. Whatever line we'd been tiptoeing around was gone now. Everyone knew. Nothing was safe anymore. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. The sound traveled down like a pulse. I didn't sleep. Every time the pipes clanged or a car passed on the wet street, I thought it was someone coming down the hall. By morning the rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like it. Her text sat on my phone like a stone in my palm. "Please don't hate me." I went upstairs before I could think myself out of it. This time she opened the door as if she'd been waiting. No cardigan, no pretense, just tired eyes and a mug in her hand. She stepped back to let me in without a word. Her apartment looked the same but didn't feel the same. The router blinked quietly on the counter, working perfectly. She'd made tea but hadn't touched it. "She's gone," she said softly. "Back to her flat. She only comes when she worries." I nodded. My voice came out rough. "You should have told me." "I know." She sat at the table. "I thought if you knew about her you'd leave. I didn't want you to." That stripped me bare. I sank into the chair opposite her. "I was already halfway gone," I said. "But then you'd look at me like—" I stopped, embarrassed. "I don't even know what I am to you." She flinched at that, then set down her mug. "You're a risk," she said quietly. "And a reminder. And somehow, a chance I never expected." We sat in the hush of the apartment, 2 mugs cooling between us. The only sound was the router's low hum. "You don't have to feel guilty," I said. "I'm an adult. We're both adults." Her laugh was soft, bitter. "It's not just guilt. It's fear. What people think. What she'll think." She paused, eyes bright. "What if I ruin you?" "You won't," I said. "You already changed me." Something broke in her face then, a flicker of hope or surrender. She reached across the table, slowly, as if giving me time to stop her. This time I didn't pull back. Our hands met in the middle, fingers knotting, awkward but real. "I don't know where this goes," she whispered. "I don't know if I'm brave enough." I squeezed her hand once. "Then don't decide yet. Just be here." Her eyes lifted to mine. For a long heartbeat the room held its breath. Everything unspoken pressed between us: age, risk, the daughter's knowing glance, the man who still parked on the street. Then she stood, our hands still joined, and stepped closer until we were face to face. She smelled like rain and tea. Her lips parted as if to speak. A car horn blared outside, shattering the quiet. We both jumped, laughing once, a short, nervous laugh that left our foreheads almost touching. "I'm terrified," she murmured. "Me too," I said. We stayed like that, inches apart, holding hands in a room where the signal finally worked and nothing else felt certain. Sunlight pushed through the blinds like it was testing the room. Her apartment looked softer in daylight, less like a hiding place, more like a real home. We were still at the table from the night before, mugs empty, hands still close but no longer joined. Outside, the street was busy again, cars splashed through puddles, someone laughed on the sidewalk. "I didn't think you'd stay," she said quietly. Her voice sounded scraped clean of pretense. "I didn't either," I admitted. "But walking away didn't feel like an answer." She rubbed a thumb over the edge of her mug. I've spent years keeping everything separate. Work here, my daughter there, no mess. And then you moved in. She smiled faintly. I don't remember the last time someone fixed something for me without wanting anything. I looked at her, really looked, the small creases at the corners of her eyes, the way her hair still held a bend from last night's rain. Maybe I wanted more than to fix your Wi-Fi, I said, not hiding it anymore. I know, she said. And I wanted more than tea and conversation. She sighed, long and trembling. That's the problem. I don't want to be a mistake for you. You're not, I said. You're a beginning I didn't expect. We both laughed at how clumsy that sounded. But the tension that had knotted the air between us for weeks eased a little. She reached across the table again, not for my hand but to push my mug closer. Drink, she said softly. You look tired. I did. The tea was lukewarm and bitter, but it steadied me. So what happens now? I asked. She shook her head. We stop hiding. We go slow. We tell the truth, to my daughter, to ourselves. If it ends, it ends. But we stop pretending this isn't real. Something in my chest loosened. I can do that. We sat for a moment in the ordinary light, two people who had finally said what they meant. She smiled at me, small, unsure, but warmer than anything yet. Then maybe we have a chance, she said. I stood, stretched, and she walked me to the door. The hall smelled like coffee and wet wood. Before I left, she touched my arm, a quick, grounding touch. Thank you for not running, she whispered. I almost did, I said. But you asked me to stay. She nodded. Then stay. Just stay. I stepped out into the morning, heart hammering, feeling like the ground under my feet was both new and familiar. Behind me, her door clicked shut, but not like a goodbye, more like a pause. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?